what's about to happen to you. You leave now.
Some consider these traits to be toxic, such as undesirable in the men of today. We consider these traits such as these not only to be desirable, but to be appreciated and celebrated. Welcome to the Toxic Male Appreciation Show, hosted by and La Reina Creole. Welcome to the safe space for the toxic male.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toxic Male Appreciation Show. We are your hosts. I am the Reina Creole, and of course, with me, I have her of Positive Fandom, and we are so glad you all are here with us. How are you doing, my dear?
I'm doing great. I am so excited for today's show, Lorena, and this is going to be our 10th show.
Yes, I can hardly believe it. It's been so much fun doing the show and just getting.
And how are you today, Lorena?
I am doing good. I'm trying to stay cool. Here in Florida, it's been, no kidding, with the heat index about 100 to like 103 every day, and no afternoon rain. That's the other thing. Usually we get the rains in the afternoon, but it's not quite time for it to happen yet, but still it's crazy hot. It is absolutely crazy hot.
It sounds unbearable. I mean, here, as you know, I'm in New York. It poured this morning and I wasn't prepared for that. I thought it was going to be a warm day and it was cold. I'm still cold, Lorena, and it's June.
Oh no. Yeah. Which is interesting because last week you had a really hot tank top on with the crisscross. I'm like, oh, it's summer in New York.
Not today.
Now it's like, I'm like, am I seeing right?
Yes, you are.
Oh, man. Well, hopefully I'll get back to being nice and somewhat warm, not stinking hot, but warm very, 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 very soon. Well, folks, we are so glad that you are here. Make sure those of you on Twitch watching us, cruising by, please make sure to follow myself, follow her, also known as Positive Fandom, here on Twitch. And this week, I'm really excited about who we're going to talk about. Well, I'm excited about who we're talking about every week, but with Father's Day coming up, we've been featuring some famous father and son duos in Hollywood. So last week we talked about Denzel Washington and his son, John David Washington. Yes. So this week we are going to be talking father-son duo of Clint Eastwood and his son, Scott Eastwood.
Yeah.
I'm like, where the heck do I start? I will start from the beginning. Clint Eastwood is one of those Hollywood stars who has been around for like ever. And by forever, I mean, like I would sit, whether I was sitting with my grandfather or my father, there was some kind of Clint Eastwood movie that they always liked to watch. And he was like a hero to them. So between like seeing those, and then I would see glimpses of Dirty Harry because I was not allowed to watch.
Right.
I wasn't allowed to watch Dirty Harry, but it was funny how as a kid, I wasn't allowed to watch that. But a lot of us sure as heck knew who it was, knew who he was, the actor who portrayed him. And Clint Eastwood, he's just one of those guys that if you look up in the dictionary, rugged American male, 9 times out of 10, you would probably expect to see Clint Eastwood just from the movies he's been in, just from his persona on and off the camera. What are your impressions? Mhm.
Well, Clint Eastwood rose up and became a star in a very famous television show called Rawhide at a time where Westerns were extremely popular in the United States. And that starring role where he, is sort of a cattle hand, cattle rancher in the West was absolutely, a fantasy for many American children who, played games like that at that time. And so he managed to create a persona of a Western figure that is still emulated today in a lot of films. And of course, that's, that persona called the man with no name. And in addition to that, he made modern films like Dirty Harry, as you mentioned, which, we've watched millions of times, and it has a tagline in it. And that enormous gun, I don't know the kind of gun, but it was a big gun. And he made the gun look small, honestly, but but it was a serious weapon. And, I think he
Mhm.
played a police officer in San Francisco in the 70s,
Mhm.
and he just would just take no BS from anyone. And he just really took it seriously. It was meant to be a serious situation. And I think that his acting style reflected the attitude of many Americans at that time, and definitely filled a niche. But his coolness and suaveness and subtle sophistication, even in Rawhide. And I know I'd spoken to you about the scene, Lorena, because there is a scene. I'm pretty sure there is a scene. I couldn't find the scene, but there's a scene where Clint Eastwood is in the opening credits, and then he's kind of like out and it's hot in the desert, and he has his shirt off, and he's kind of like dunking his head in the water, or splashing himself with water, and he's smiling. And it's like
Mhm.
totally meant for someone like you and I, Lorena, to watch and enjoy this young man. He was very young at the time when he did that role,
Mhm.
and just kind of admire his, he knows he looks good, and and he works hard, and he's not ashamed to kind of show himself off and just be down to the basics. He doesn't even care if you see him all dirty and messed up. He'll just kind of dunk water over his head, and you can kind of see him in all his glory. I mean,
Mhm.
that was sex appeal at that time. That was just pure and unbridled. It wasn't, there was no makeup on him or anything. It was just pure Clint Eastwood. And I thought to myself, the fantasy of being a cowboy, the fantasy of that time, he embodied a lot of that. And I think that he also just fit the role for so many other films. And of course he did Dirty Harry when he got a little bit older than that. But
Mhm.
those films where he plays the man with no name, is he's playing a character that's been around already, and he knows the score. He knows that being in the West means that anything can go down. And it is true that a lot of those scenes were taken from Kurosawa or other famous
Mhm.
directors, but it's still really appealing. That fantastic score from, I think it's Sergio. Is it Sergio Leone? And I
Think
can't remember
so.
who wrote the score, but the score. I mean, it's a famous score, and it had a sense of fantasy to it. It almost brought you. It almost made you feel like it was bringing you back in time to the West at that time. And of course, these were made in Italy, and they're called spaghetti
Getty
westerns.
Westerns, yes.
But Lorena, how many times have you and I watched that on network television? Countless times, right?
Oh, so many times. It was like hitting a jackpot when you're like at home, because my parents couldn't afford cable. So when the local TV network was playing like spaghetti westerns, we're like, this is gonna be fun to just sit and watch this guy and watch Clint Eastwood just take no crap, light matches on his foot. Had that look like I am not the person that you need to mess with. And it was just a fun thing, to fun movie to watch. Those spaghetti westerns, it is amazing how much rewatchability um, that they have, because it's just, again, the epitome of the American West. It's like it's romanticized. It's something, that's viewed the world over. And for especially kids who are like our age, and we happen to see this come across the screen, and even though whether it was in black and white, whether it was in color, when you see Clint Eastwood's face and how he looks like he's ready to fight, it's just, for some reason, it grabs your attention, and you just want to sit and you're like, who is this man? I want to know who he is. I want to know, what he's doing. And that whole persona has been passed down through pop culture like wildfire. And we'll actually get to it a little bit later about how far around the world that it's gone and affected other people as well. But before we get into a little bit more about Clint Eastwood, I see Steve Bax, 1964, is here, aka Nuts. Says hello to two vivaciously sensual diamonds. And Lorena. Well, I'm so glad to see you and glad you're here. And very glad you got the Gator bottle opener. Yeah. It is fun and the most popular item at Gatorland, which is why they keep selling out of them. It's like it's a fridge magnet, but it's a bottle opener and it has Gatorland on it and like a gator.
It sounds fantastic. I gotta get one.
It's so much freaking fun. So I'm so glad you got that. So glad you got that, my dear. Yeah. So Clint Eastwood. So another movie that actually two other ones I remember seeing him in. One was Unforgiven with oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Morgan Freeman.
Yes.
With Morgan Freeman. And that was one where if you didn't, it's like you knew of Clint Eastwood, but it was like he was back from the 70s. It's like all of a sudden he was dropped into like a time period that you could remember. And just the cinematography in this, his performance in this, it was oh, go ahead, Maria.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it really was amazing. I think that he manages to cast himself, and of course his career has spanned practically his entire life, but he manages to cast himself in age appropriate roles, Lorena.
Yes.
And so, a lot of times we'll see him playing, like for example, there he's a little bit older, a little grayer, and he's playing someone who has kind of put his guns down, so to speak, but now has to go and get the pistol and the ammo out and hop right back on that horse. I think that his sense of where he fits in and in as an actor is really important, because I think that he has been very specific in finding out where he would best suit in a role and obtaining that role and playing it to a point of believability, because oftentimes some of that physical characteristic that he has will suit that role. And it's so important to see that. Recently we've been seeing situations where people are cast in perhaps not in the best roles, Lorena. And that does actually affect how the pieces give you an impression. And one example of that really is, for me, would be Cowboy Bebop, where the lead character, although he's a fantastic actor, everybody questioned the age difference. We love seeing this actor. He could have been another character in the story, but I think that when it comes to these casting agents, especially the casting agents, let's say in the case with Clint Eastwood, they got it spot on. And there is something to be said for these casting agents who look at actors and try and figure out, what would be the right role for this particular character. there is a certain level of finesse to it. And, Clint Eastwood fortunately seems to have gotten it right 99.9% of the time, even to a point where a lot of times he'll be, he wears many titles as an actor, director, producer, singer, composer. And so I almost wonder that if in order to have a career as long as his, you almost have to wear as many hats as that, because you do need those opportunities to find scripts that would be considered ideal. And then after you find those scripts,
Mhm.
you want to make sure you're cast in the right role. And I think he's continually managed to do that. And another thing that he does, from what I understand, and I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure this is correct, is that he's known for just one take.
Yes,
And
that is
so
correct.
the idea of that, everybody, is, time is money in Hollywood. And it's better to go ahead and rehearse for 5 hours and not film anything, and to get it right on that first take, than to have to do multiple takes. Those multiple takes, suck up a lot of money. And the
Mhm.
encouragement of telling an actor that, we've rehearsed it, because they do these rehearsals, Lorena, they do these big rehearsals on many of these sets before they film these scenes. So it's not like they aren't going to do that rehearsal. They do rehearsal, dressed up or in plain clothes or whatever. They do these rehearsals. So the actors
Mhm.
often know, what's expected of them. But the idea of the efficiency and the sensibility of getting something in one take is pretty relevant, especially as the price of making films has really skyrocketed in today's
Mhm.
movie making time. But I think that he's seen so many changes in Hollywood through his career that he's managed to adjust to those changes and make different roles his own, and adjust to what the American public wants to see. I think
Mhm.
that Unforgiven was appropriate for the time in the 90s. That was the type of story that appealed to a lot of people. And, I also think that there is a certain value as well, to a man who is maturing and kind of embraces that this is what's happening. And a lot of times when I watch Clint Eastwood in a role, recently the one that I watched him in was Cry Macho, but before that I watched him in Gran Torino.
And that's one that I really, really want to see, that God, I have so much to watch. That was one where when I just saw him in the trailer, sitting on his porch with a beer, looking like, just do not freaking bother me. I just want to live my life. It fit perfectly. I'm just like, I have got to flip and see this movie, because you're right. Age-wise, it fit him. The scenario, it fit him. And again, that pull of, you see Clint Eastwood in a movie where he's so comfortable, you're just like, I have to find out what's going on.
Definitely. And, I think that, when we see him in these roles, he purposefully picked a gentleman who was older and is playing that character because it also suits his own age as well. And I think that there is something to be said for the sentiment of a person who is older, who's an older actor, and also getting roles for older actors in Hollywood. I think that if you could follow a formula the way that Clint Eastwood has done, that you're going to find situations like this. For me, Clint Eastwood relatively looks the same to me. And it is true, he is an older man, but he's kept himself
Mhm.
pretty fit. He doesn't have a dad bod or anything like that. He doesn't. He's got sort of like a thin, tall, a slight build, or I'm not even quite sure if I'm saying the right type of thing, but he doesn't have any fat on him. So,
Yeah.
he looks pretty fit. It seems like, he probably gets up in the morning and does,
Mm.
pull-ups or something. I agree. He is awesome at any
He
age.
really is. He's one of those where it's occupational wise, he's kept up so well with keeping his body in shape that, that it fits. It's like he still looks fit. He looks like one of those, active older adults, and we all see them. They're at the gym like, okay, I really need to try to keep up, because because they're just in there and they look so good, because that's been like a discipline, for them.
Yeah. And we also see them running around the neighborhood, right, Lorena? Many of them like to jog around the neighborhood or walk, with their dog or whatever. And we see them
Mhm.
and you're like, wow, they probably did like 5 miles already today,
Yeah.
in the time it took me to get up and get dressed. These guys have done 5 miles. Like they're like, good morning, like all cheerful and everything. And I think the thing that I
Mhm.
liked about Gran Torino was that he played a character, an older gentleman, someone who was definitely in their 60s or 70s, whose children don't really respect him. The kids have moved on and they've done very well financially. And the
Mhm.
father, sacrificed and made sure the kids had what they needed in the home. And the neighborhood has changed. And they don't want to have anything to do with this neighborhood. And they certainly don't want to have anything to do with their father because they kind of look down on him. And I think that was very interesting approach to the role as well, because, it's almost as if, he's saying it's like an analogy or metaphor for how people view older people. And, I thought that was an
Mm.
incredibly sensitive thing to do. And, in the end, he kind of makes the ultimate sacrifice, but he goes out with a smile on his face, knowing that he plays a war veteran. And, of course, his views are going to be different because if he was fighting in the Korean War, what was that, like 1950 or 19 around that time?
Yeah,
He
around that
has,
time, 50s.
yeah, he has
Mhm.
that viewpoint. And for some of us who have parents who grew up during that time, my mother grew up during that time. She was born in 1937. Clint Eastwood was born in 1930. So he's got a few years on her. But that decade of people and a lot of us who have parents who are in that age category, we are aware that, they have a different viewpoint. But a lot of times people are like, yeah, F them. They don't care. And I thought that Gran Torino, that car represented a lot of the values that this character had, and perhaps a lot of older Americans have, but in a dignified way. And boy, he was a tough badass in this film, even as an older man. I really like this character that he
Mhm.
played in Gran Torino. And no matter what happened in this movie, Lorena, the character cared about what was going on around him. And I felt like that was pretty important.
Mhm.
But also the role of, seeing an older person as a mentor, um, a person who, perhaps doesn't have anything. There are a lot of people who don't have the advantages that his children had. He struggled, he worked, he made sure they had what they needed. And they're kind
Mhm.
of like, yeah, whatever, Dad. I'm too busy. I got my own life. I don't really have time to deal with you. But then he comes across a young kid, a teenage kid who really doesn't have anything, let's say monetarily wise. He has
Mhm.
his family, but he's kind of fascinated by everything that this man has. And I remember a scene in the film where Clint Eastwood says, well, it took me many years to gather all this stuff.
Mhm.
It took a lifetime for me to collect and have all these, tools and to have everything in order. It was a long time. And he realized that this teenager really, could see the value in how long it took him to get there, even though he was there to steal his car. This is what the film is about, stealing this car. And everybody
Mhm.
knows these old school cars,
That's
they'll.
exactly these scars. If you're a gearhead, if you're a musclehead, and you see something like a Gran Torino, I mean, like restored, looking hot, you know that's like a car that you have to have, even though it is like decades older than anything new and flashy. You know that is like the epitome of a collector item. You know.
Absolutely. And the car represents so many things about the character. And
Mhm.
you can't help but love this character. And he also plays roles like this where the what he has to overcome, it almost seems impossible, or that there really isn't a way out of the situation, but he
Mhm.
manages to find a way and take a stance for what he must do in a lot of these situations, just like he very similarly in Unforgiven, where he took a stand. He was a little rusty on this. And I
Mhm.
think in Gran Torino, which was made probably see
This was in
94.
2008.
So it
Gran
was
Torino
about
came out.
maybe 13 or 14 years
Yeah.
later.
Mhm.
He took a similar approach. But even from this poster, you can tell that this man is not going to take any kind of shit from
I
anybody.
mean, I know, right? And that's part of the huge appeal of, of this movie. It's just like this man, he's seen so many things and is so protective of, like, of what he has. This is like not the guy that you
Yeah.
want to mess with. He absolutely needs he
You know
needs
his gun
business.
is he's got the ammo right next to his gun in
Mhm.
the gun case, and he can load it faster than you could say, "I'm sorry, Mister."
Mhm.
It's like, yeah,
And
you
get
don't want to be
exactly. It's like, no, you don't want to mess with him.
exactly. And I think that so of course we're talking about Clint Eastwood and his son, and Clint
Mhm.
Eastwood is kind of a man who also oozes an incredible amount of sex appeal. And when I was talking about him in Rawhide, that immediately caught my attention because he was so freaking sexy in that film.
Mhm.
Of course, as an older man, he continues that theme, but
Mhm.
he has had made some films with a leading lady
I'm
where
gonna pull this one up because this one, I'm not gonna lie, the title made me cringe. The title made me cringe, and when I would see how many matured ladies were just like losing their crap over this, I'm like, okay, I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna watch it. Well, of course, that was like way longer than I'm comfortable admitting. Now I'm kind of like, okay, maybe it's a time to give it, another look. So for this movie, all I know is that Clint Eastwood is in it. I believe he plays a photographer. He's
yes.
like this, this lonely photographer type. And supposedly there's a bathtub scene in there that I
Yes.
needed to see, supposedly.
There is a bathtub scene, and I got to tell you, Lorena, if I were an actor and somebody told me that I had to do a bathtub scene with Clint Eastwood, I think I would just scream, with joy if I had to do something like that. Of course, it's Meryl Streep who plays the woman in the movie, and she um, is essentially a lovely lady who lives in one of the counties that he is taking these photographs with, and they fall in love. And it is the sweetest love story you've ever seen in your life. Seeing them dance together, especially, I thought it's just incredible. And there's no distractions. Like, it's a very they're at in this beautiful back landscape of these
Mhm,
bridges. And then there's scenes where he's at her farm. Her family is off at a
mhm,
fairgrounds for the weekend or the week.
mhm,
And he comes over and they're on the farmhouse, and it's very kind of quiet, and all you can think about is love. There's nothing to distract you from this love story. There's
mhm,
nothing else to do at this farmhouse other than to kind of like hold hands and look into each other's eyes.
mhm.
It was really, really good, Lorena. And I almost thought to myself, I imagine that for any leading lady who's lucky enough to be playing a love interest with Clint Eastwood, I can understand how, you would kind of like really be enjoying making these scenes. These were wonderful romance scenes that you just absolutely enjoy so much. A lot of what is missing in a lot of modern cinema today.
I would have to agree with you on that. Having like an actual love story with someone who is feminine, someone who is not only who is masculine, but is not apologetic about his particular masculine energy, because that's what this, I will call it a trope because it's kind of how it is even in classic literature, like say Madame Bovary, which goodness, that was a long ass book. It drove me nuts. So when the movie came out, I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense. The heroine, she's not romantically fulfilled, and she's bored, with her life. And this guy comes in from nowhere, just unapologetically who he is, and sweeps
Sorry.
that's okay. And just sweeps her, off her feet. But that's a common romantic trope that you see, the lady, the woman who's like lonely, the man who breezes in from out of town, and we don't quite know that much about him, but she's just
Mhm.
fascinated, and we get to see how they interact together. So I remember this was, oh Lord, my grandma talked so much about this darn movie. I mean, it's just like, oh, the bridges in Madison County, we have to see it. And there were so many guys I knew who were just like, no, no, Clint, I love you, but no, it's like this wasn't made for you.
Well, also, I think that when we talked about different ages and how people fall in love and
Hmm.
appropriate roles, and he is an older man in this film, and Meryl Streep is a mature woman, and
Hmm.
it's a romance between two people. They are nude in this tub, like they've just made love that day and are taking a bath together. This is something that's happening to them in real time in their lives, and it's nice to see a mature couple falling in love like this. And it shows that Clint Eastwood, even at an older age, can kind of grab your attention
Hmm.
in this. And I think that that's absolutely fascinating, and that's for me why it had such an impact on so many people.
I get you. I get you. Well, I'm going to be really, really weird because another one of my favorite Clint Eastwood movies, which is actually an ensemble thing. If I can get this thing to roll back up here. I'm so sorry, IMDb.
No,
I'll
it's all
get it.
good.
I'll get it back. No, but I remember when I lived in LA and my parents came to visit me, I made a wrong turn down Hollywood Boulevard
Oh,
and ran smack dab into the preview, the red carpet premiere of this movie.
wow. Wow.
Because your girl, like I said, it's like I think I've said before, it's like I was a research assistant at NASA, like a total space head, whatever. So this movie came out, Space Cowboys, which I want to say is like a throwback to the movie The Right Stuff.
Yes.
So it was like an updated version of The Right Stuff. Have you seen this one before?
I don't believe I've seen this film, but I've heard a lot about it.
It was basically think of like the guys who were in the space program, like say in the 1960s. Bring it up to 2000 because they had the certain proprietary information and the skills that the modern generation does not have. It's just like, we're going to need your help. So this movie was so cool. It had Clint Eastwood in it. Tommy Lee Jones was in it. Donna Sutherland was in it. James Garner was in it. And, just with Clint Eastwood leading it. And I think he even said in an interview that it was basically old farts in space. But but so many people, including me, including like other young women, were just like, Clint Eastwood is in it? Okay. Okay. I'm gonna sit down and watch it. And it was so much fun. I mean, to get to actually see the premiere and to see how people just gravitated to this film, regardless of that these men were, I want to say, so this was like 22, so I guess Clint's like 91. So I think he was like about 65,
70.
66, close to his
Well,
70s when they filmed this.
yeah. Yeah.
So it's again, it speaks to the fact that with his mature age, the part still fit. It just fit absolutely, it fit absolutely perfectly, especially for those of us who were like, space program
Oh,
history
yeah.
freaking nerds. We just thought that this was an absolutely freaking amazing thing. Hello, Banjo Sandwich.
Hey, hi,
Thank
Gary.
you for
Nice to meet
being
you.
here. He
You
says
know,
Clint is awesome. Yes, he is.
he really is. And I think that's certainly an appropriate way to describe him. You know what I think is also very interesting is that the idea of and look at Courtney B. Vance.
I know. Just like I got to
He's
take
like,
these old guys up into it's like up into space.
and Tommy Lee. What's really interesting too, Lorena, is that um, not so fairly recently, but probably more fairly recently, I'm looking at these older actors who are, let's say, like Michael Keaton, who has been making or been doing a lot of films recently and kind of kicking ass there. And it's making me rethink some of the abilities of many of these older men who are in their 60s and 70s, which would be something that I had not really even thought about before. But clearly, this man is capable. If he's capable of flying a ship to space, he can do anything. And that is also very appealing for me, and I'm sure to you as a woman. It is a very attractive quality, and one of the toxic male traits of being able to kind of save the day and doing these impossible feats that a trained specialist like himself, who's trained probably for 30 years to do this sort of work, it is really a miracle when you think about what they're capable of doing.
It really is, and it's funny that you should mention that. When I was a research assistant at NASA, the joke was it's like you couldn't really find the ladies' bathroom because there weren't that many women, that were there. But I would always be fascinated, like how smart these men were, how they would just make stuff work out of like out of nothing because when the space shuttle when that was flying, that is actually 1970s technology, but they make it work. And I would sit there and listen to them tell me this stuff. Of course, they were very, very proud of it because I was actually listening. Like I can do this, I can put this together. There's people, depending on me, and lives are in my hand. And this is why I take my job, very seriously. But you're right, that's an extremely attractive quality, especially,
Mhm.
they call it toxic, but that whole thing of, being a protector, pushing the envelope, all of that. And Clint Eastwood embodies that. And also, yeah, because it's like here you got Tommy Lee Jones here.
Tommy Lee,
I
yes.
think this is Donald Sutherland that was over here. You
Mhm.
got Oh my gosh, you got
Oh yeah,
James Garner back
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. I think
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, this like gives me I'm like looking at the panels. This is what gives me flashbacks. They're
it's
just looking
it's
at all this stuff.
it's exciting to see that sort of technology, as you mentioned, Lorena. And I think that, a lot of people are at a point where they realize, the incredible feats that were accomplished and how, it's brought us to modern day. We've grown up with the reality of space travel, but imagine being alive at a time when space travel, it just wasn't the norm. And I think
Mhm.
for a generation to go from, coming up with the idea
It's too funny.
coming up with the idea of doing this feat and then achieving it, and then pushing it to the limits each time. Every time it was dangerous. I mean, there was not a single time where this wasn't dangerous.
Very, very dangerous, especially with the not Apollo not Apollo 13,
Mhm.
but there was another no, it wasn't Apollo. I think it was. Yeah, it was Apollo. And I'm blanking on which one. I'm embarrassed
Mhm.
that I can't remember. That there was actually an accident, and the whole thing like caught fire, and all three of the astronauts died. As a matter of fact, they're memorialized in I haven't been to NASA in a while, but there used to be like this memorial garden where it had like the names of the shuttle Columbia, with the astronauts who died there, Challenger, anyone from the space program, because this is very, very dangerous. They're basically sitting in this little tin capsule on top of a hydrogen powered rocket. That's extremely, extremely dangerous. And the fact that, you have these guys who've done this for so long, it's amazing. It's like they're superheroes. They really are.
They really are, and you make such a good point. For as many astronauts go up in space, there's maybe two or three times as many who are on the ground with the same qualifications, who are
Hmm.
as equally educated as they are. and are working out the problems even before they go up there with them. It's a team effort.
Mhm.
It's, you know,
Absolutely.
yes,
Absolutely. Hidden
yes.
Figures.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And absolutely. It was a team effort. And, you know, I kind of, Lorena, I wish we had something like that now that could bring our nation together to accomplish something like that today. I think it would really boost our country and our morale and create a lot of, not that we don't have people who aren't proud to be here, but I wish we had something like that that could bring more people together for an accomplishment like that. Like, for example, the moon landing,
Mhm.
you know, how everybody just like the entire world watching that. Um, but I think that, you know, it's very interesting to see that. And they're trying to kind of recapture that um, in things like For All Mankind, which addresses
Mhm.
space travel. What if, you know, a what if scenario. And
Right.
it seems very real because we know that a lot of the stuff is very well documented that we know about.
Mhm.
And, you know, it seems very real because a lot of what they're probably basing this on really happened. What happens to these, you know, scientists and engineers, and often military personnel on top of that,
Mhm.
later on in their careers? You know, we've seen some astronauts who are still very active in the community in their 70s. So they
Mhm.
don't go anywhere. They're still around.
Well, they're still around, and some of them, if you're an engineering nerd like me and you find out one of these dudes is still living, you're basically stalking them like, "Tell me this. Tell me when this happened. Tell me when this happened. Did this happen? Did they?" And they're like literally a treasure trove. It's kind of like, "You found a live one? Really? We need to bring them in here. What do they want?
Life.
What can we bribe them with?"
Yes.
To get them to come in, because once they're gone, that particular knowledge is gone.
Yeah, and so I think that this was quite an appropriate film at the time to be made around that time when so many of them would be in perhaps in their 70s,
Mhm.
and you know, nearing, obviously they're retired, but nearing a point where you know, they may not be around much longer. This might be their last. Of course, this would be one of their last major achievements,
Be the
but
first.
Right.
Ladies
I think that it does make you think about what they sacrificed and did. And um, oh yes,
Oh, okay.
Gary Benjamin says R&B got me into For All Mankind, and I love it. It is an amazing show. And Lorraine, it's if you haven't, you probably already know about it, but if you don't,
Mhm.
it's a version of the space program if it continued at that time, a what if kind of scenario. It's so well done. It's got Kennerman, I think, I can't remember his name, but I love that actor. And he plays an astronaut, and you know, it keeps going. The program doesn't stop, and I think that
Mhm.
approach, and I hope I'm saying it right, Gary Vandersandwich. So if I'm not, just say something. The approach of it is that we continue with the space program, almost like it almost feels like a precursor to Star Trek to me, because Star Trek is under the premise that we would continue to go into space and develop that
Mhm.
type of technology that would make us galaxy travelers. And
Mhm.
so that program made, you know, it puts in my mind that's what we would have had to continue to do in order to get, you know, in 2300, let's say the year 2300, in order to have space, you know, travel perfected,
Right.
so to speak. So I think that it's pretty important in the idea of continuing a program,
Mhm.
and what happens when you are in space and away from your family for so long. Very interesting concepts, and just a spectacular show, which you would enjoy, Lorena. Um, but it is,
Mhm.
I think that they're trying to capture that magical moment.
I
Um,
would definitely have to check that out, because one of the things that I'm still disappointed and angry about is the space program here in the US
yeah,
effectively being shut down.
yeah,
And especially when when you've worked in it and you've seen, I mean, I've just seen so many things, so many launches, so many like talented, men and women who keep, all of this like up and flying, eating lunch next to a Saturn V, a Saturn V rocket, having someone show me like where the O-rings are, being able to ride this darn trawler, which when it's loaded takes like a day and a half to get to where it's, to get to where it's
Yeah, to get that
supposed.
shuttle on the launch pad,
Yeah, I
right?
had to get that thing, on the launch pad, or just being able to be, in the building where they assemble the rocket together and just get the sheer size and magnitude of all of that. I mean, SpaceX is doing some stuff. I mean, I'm glad SpaceX is there, but still, it was just really upsetting, especially to a lot of us
Mhm.
who had grown up watching the space program and the heroes in the space program, and thinking, we're going to just inherit this and take it over and bring it, to the next level.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you, Lorena. I thought that was one of the biggest fiscal mistakes that the United States has ever made, is to stop the launches. And I know they were expensive. I know that. But I just don't believe that the American people didn't want the space program to continue. It
Mhm.
is culturally and scientifically significant. Um,
Very.
yes. And, it kind of destroyed a lot of the momentum going forward. And of course, that knowledge, once you stop doing missions like that, a lot of it is lost. I mean, we had the shuttle. The next step would have been more rockets or different
Mhm.
types of spacecraft going forward. Someone would have designed something, but it is unfortunate that that happened. And I can't remember. I think it was what, 2006 or 2007 when it was terminated. I was quite shocked. I was shocked, Lorena, and I'm still
Mhm.
very surprised that it stayed, terminated. I'm still surprised they haven't revived it.
Yeah, it was just, I couldn't believe it you know, when I heard. So it's kind of like, because some people ask, are you going back to visit NASA? And I said, well, eventually, but in a way, it kind of makes me feel sad, because I've been so many in so many areas there, and I've seen so much technology. And when you've been like in that room where you get to see the shuttle launch, and you see like all those men and women that are controlling everything, and you're right there in the firing room that they call it. It's sad to realize that that's gone, because that's been such a symbol of pride for this country, that you know uh that it's gone. But man, I tell you, that can really depress the heck out of people
Aw.
if you actually look at it. But we're going to switch to something else, which is, Clint Eastwood's son, Scott. Now, one of the interesting things about Clint Eastwood, of course, is, let's see, I believe he's got two ex-wives and several baby mamas that are out there. But
Mhm.
with Clint Eastwood, a lot of that stuff was an open secret, I would say, so to speak. It wasn't like something that people talked about, a whole lot, because he did get around quite a bit. That's probably making it an understatement, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd say he definitely is a romantic, and you can tell that he's got that smile, that irresistible smile, where you're going to say, "Yeah, I'll go out on a date with you." Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like you're going to say yes, even if there is like a 30-year age gap, um,
Yeah.
and probably more for us, but more of an
Mhm.
age gap than that. But he had a long relationship with Sandra Locke, and it's well documented, at least on that one. Everyone knew about that. And he's made several films with her, things like, I think, Every Which Way But Loose, and these sort of classic and somewhat culturally, yes, Steve Bax, 1964. There will never be a reboot of Every Which Way But Loose. You can bet on that. Or any Eastwood movie. There is only one Eastwood. A lot of it was his character, that character that he played of, probably so many men in this country at that time. And it was just really amazing. You could see his charisma on the screen. And of course, women are going to desire a man like this, because he has so many of those qualities on and off the screen that are incredibly attractive, Lorena.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. He's one of those men where he keeps his charisma, and it's like no matter what age you are, you know, between like, yeah, I'll probably guess like between 18 and up or whatever, he just has that particular persona. Like, for example, um I know I've been like out places and some guy who's like literally, he's old enough to be my dad,
Mhm.
but extremely charismatic. And just like, yeah, of course, sure, sure, buy me a drink. Sure, I'll talk to you. Yeah. Yeah. And
And
you're not in any hurry. You're not dismissive at all. You're just like, why am I can't stop talking to this guy. Why does he have my attention? And it's just that charisma. Because let's see, I think Clint Eastwood is 91 and Scott is like 30 something.
yeah. So that
Yeah.
means that when he was in his 70s, 60s or 70s, he had his son. So that tells you the capabilities of this man, and probably of many older men. As I said before,
Hmm.
I was not even thinking about that. But now, after seeing him and Michael Keaton made this film called The Protege, where he has this romance with the lead character. Michael Keaton is in his 70s, and I wasn't expecting them to go in that direction. I said, they can't do this, but they did. And I thought to myself, wow, he's just incredible. And his son, honestly, I feel is equally incredible. I love that the idea of Clint Eastwood saying how he's old school and having integrity and values. And I can see that. That's so important, for children. And I think that, it's made his son, Scott, have that as well. And it means something. He's always going to remember that about his father.
Especially because he said in this interview that while his father wasn't physically present, for not a consistent present in his life, but not like, hey, he saw him every day,
Yeah, because he's
or
on the
anything
set,
like that.
guys.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
he was on a set. It's like he lived with his mom for a while, and then, no, okay, I'm gonna go live with my dad, and then it's like, okay, I don't know if that's gonna work. But when Scott got into Hollywood, he didn't use his father's last name.
Right.
He didn't use his father's last name, and he would call his dad and say, "Hey, can you loan me money for a car?" And Clint Eastwood was like, "No, no," because for Clint Eastwood, before he got his role in Rawhide, I believe he was doing like a blue collar job to pay the bills, much like Harrison Ford was doing. For people who don't know, Harrison Ford used to be a carpenter, and that's how he was making his money. And I think he went into acting because he fell off a roof or something like that. But Clint Eastwood had, a 9 to 5, or, well, let's put it this way, a job where he could indulge himself in acting, but he had a regular job to pay the bills. So he was very grounded in that manner. And of course, pass that on to his son, like, no, we can't just give this to you. You won't really understand the value of if you don't work for it. And Clint also says something really nice in this article about, his mother. He said, his mother also instilled, the same kind of value in him with respect to
Mhm.
that. And that's very refreshing because you see some I'll say it, some demon spawn and some of these folks in Hollywood, and they are just out of freaking control. Paris Hilton. Uh but you'll see it. It's like they're out of control. They're crazy. They just are not very grounded at all. But with Scott, it's completely it's very different.
Right. And I love that, there's this desire to bring him up in this way. Um, you know, and I think that children need that in their lives. They need to know that there are certain rules and a reason why you do things. And it does, kind of put you in a direction where you'll make decisions that I think oftentimes will better benefit you more than not.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So for folks who don't know, his mom was actually a flight attendant. That's when she met Clint Eastwood. And he was kind of involved with somebody else at the same time, but apparently carried on an affair with Scott's mother for several years. So he actually has a younger sister.
Mm-hmm. That's
As
interesting.
well. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's interesting when you read about Clint Eastwood. Just let's put it this way. He was never lacking for company.
No, I don't think he
To
would
put
ever be
it
lacking for
no,
company.
to put it mildly, it seemed like he was always attached or involved with someone or had like a backup or something like that for what's going on. I knew about his daughter, Francesca Eastwood, and I think his ex-wife, Dina. I remember her. I remember Dina Eastwood.
Mm-hmm.
They actually had like a reality show, which I watched a couple of episodes of, which was interesting. But
Yeah, I never watched that. I didn't know that he had a reality show.
well, the wife
Oh,
did.
she had the show.
He would have an appearance every now and then, but it was mostly around Dina and the kids.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea that existed. There are a lot of reality shows out there, but yeah, I didn't know that one. I'm going to have to look that up, Lorena.
Yeah, that one. I think the reason I remember that reality show is because either the producer, I think the producer of that show wound up following me on Twitter. I'm like,
Oh,
okay, yeah, because it was. I'm like a reality show. Because here's the thing: when living in LA, I knew who Dina Eastwood was, so
of
I
course.
paid rapt attention to it. I'm like, okay,
Right.
I
Right.
definitely want to. I definitely want to check that out. But yeah, she had a reality show.
Yes. And looking at Scott Eastwood here, to be honest with you,
I
I
didn't
think
know
that
he was in this movie. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I did not
no, I
know he was
didn't
in
know
this
either.
movie.
I didn't know either. I think that that's interesting that he discusses roles with his father.
And that is actually really, really smart. And values his father's knowledge because it's not like his father is no one in Hollywood. It's not like his father's a fly by night actor in Hollywood. It's like
No.
it's like somebody who's been on both sides of the camera and just entrenched in the whole process. And of course, he's been around the block a few times.
Yes, certainly. I think it's I think that if actors could ask their parents about roles or someone that they can rely on to give them sound advice, they do make different choices. And, being informed about whether or not a role is appropriate for you is a big deal. Sometimes you don't necessarily want to make the next film for so many reasons, even though you may have been fantastic in the first one.
Hmm.
Perhaps the second offer, or at least not monetary wise, but the character may not be what you'd hoped for or hoped it would be. So that is
Hmm.
something to think about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's really interesting about this because he had asked his father advice because apparently for the Suicide Squad sequel, they wanted him to do the sequel, but they weren't offering him any money and they didn't have a script.
Yeah, that's not cool.
Now, so he asked his father about it and he pretty much said, well, if you feel like you need it, do it. If not, skip it. I mean, right to the point. So he wound up turning it down, which was very, very, very smart, actually.
Yeah, and I think that this was I I know that for a lot of people watching it, they're probably shocked that that would be the kind of offer that they would offer an actor, but it does happen where they kind of give you these offers and they might say it's a final offer, no negotiations. And take it or leave it. And usually when they're not willing to negotiate, it's a sign that you probably shouldn't take it. But because you always have
Mhm.
to, you probably should be negotiating everything in Hollywood with your
Absolutely.
attorney. And, there are going to be things that they've left out. But an offer like that indicates to me that, they probably said this is a flat out deal. We're not going to make any changes. You could just have to take it or leave it. Certainly isn't anything that would appeal to most people. I'm not saying that people haven't accepted an offer like that, but
Mhm.
certainly, it's not an appealing offer to most actors, I think.
No, it's really not, and it reminds me of, when Claudia Christian was talking about Babylon 5, why she wasn't in the show when it moved to TNT, and she's just like, there's no contract, nothing to sign. You just want me to promise to be on that show. She's like, no disrespect to my other co-stars, but she's just like, nah, I'll pass. You need to give me something concrete to do that with. And with Babylon 5 at the time, I mean, they paid the money, I believe the Bruce Broxleitner, if I remember correctly. But the other actors, they pretty much needed it more than, I would say, more than she did. So they signed on for it. But she was the holdout, and people couldn't understand why. And then when she explained it, I'm kind of like, well, that makes sense. It's like, why would you? That's like taking a job that says, we'll give you a job offer, but we don't know if we're going to pay you or when we're going to pay you.
Yeah, it's not cool.
No, it's just like, it seems to be Hollywood is the only place where they could actually freaking do that, because I can't see someone saying, we want you for a job, but we're not gonna pay you
Yeah,
for it.
and I think that that, like I said, these negotiations are so important for so many people.
Hmm.
You know, you have to even negotiate, even if it looks like a great deal, you still have to negotiate the deal. So you're going to turn it with your attorneys, you're going to read the contract
Hmm.
several times, ask
Hmm.
questions, and you just wouldn't ever sign anything like that. And I'm glad he didn't do that. And
Hmm.
sharing that information with everyone also was very important too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for those who are wondering, a lot of his scenes wound up on the cutting room floor for Suicide Squad. So I guess if the infamous Ayer cut manages to manifest itself, you'll probably see more of him. But the fact that I couldn't even flip and remember he was in this movie,
Yeah, I don't either. And that tells you something.
yeah, yeah, just like, dude, yeah, you did the right thing. But he's going to be in Fast and Furious 10. I think he was in
And
8 too. I
I'm
think. I think
hoping,
he was in
oh,
8.
what, he was in the previous one as well?
I
In
think
eight, you
so.
think?
I think he
Hmm.
was in 8.
But he wasn't in nine.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
That's interesting. 10 is going to be extraordinary. I can't wait to see what that's going to look like.
I mean, I had zero interest in that movie,
Me
especially when
too.
they announced Brie Larson. I'm like, yeah, who the frick cares? And then I hear Jason Momoa is in it.
Hmm.
Then we hear we hear Scott Eastwood is coming back.
Hmm.
Then we hear Alan Richardson is gonna be in it.
Hmm.
So yeah, you girls gonna have to go see that movie.
Yeah.
I will not apologize. I'm just gonna flip
Because
through
they're
it.
like, let's sweeten the deal. Let's sweeten the deal. And it's like, okay, yes, you had me at Momoa.
Yeah.
You had me at Richton.
Hmm. And you can throw this guy in here too, and we're all good with that.
It sounds like it's going to be very badass. I can't wait to see it. It
I
hasn't been
c- I
made.
can't either. It's just gonna be a rip roaring amount of fun. We're gonna kind of like clip through his um his filmography here, because again, his father is known more than he is. So apparently he was in Gran Torino
Wow. Okay.
as well, the character of Trey, but again, Scott was going by his mother's last name
Right.
in Hollywood. So people didn't
Right.
really like know who he was. So he was in Gran Torino. He was in Invictus.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember Matt Damon kind of played the head coach
Hmm.
in that one. And the South African Springboks are famous. It's rugby, right, Lorena?
Yes.
And the South African Springboks is a famous international rugby team.
Hmm.
For those who follow rugby in the community. Um, so, that's a very well known, one of the best teams out there. I had no idea he was in that either.
No. And here's another one who, oh man, I'm embarrassed. I'm going to pull this up, but I do believe I did see him in this. And this is a Texas Chainsaw,
Mm-hmm.
which they couldn't call it Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They had to call it Texas Chainsaw. I do remember this. Yeah. Oh God, this movie sucked. It
Wow.
was so bad. It was so bad. I have to remember who the heck who was Scott's character. And I think he. Oh yeah, yeah. I remember this.
I was going to say, I'm sure there's going to be a scene where we're going to see
Let's
people
see.
with no shirts on,
That's Trey Songs. Hold on one second.
partially
Dan
dressed.
Yeager. We're gonna flip through this here because I do remember seeing him. It's driving me crazy. But I think he was the her boyfriend.
Oh,
Yeah, it was her boyfriend. It turns out that she was the quote unquote baby that they took after they yeeted the Sawyer family's house in this
right.
particular version. So yeah, you probably want to skip this one. But it was cool to see Scott Eastwood in it. There we go. Yeah, Carl. Yeah, that's why, because I thought of The Walking Dead when I when I heard Carl. But yeah, he was in it. Your typical teenagers. Again, it was Texas Chainsaw, not Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Forgettable. Watch the original version. Nothing beats the original version. But you know, he was hot looking, so it
Yeah.
I if you just want something to just watch and laugh at, watch this. But it was funny. It was funny. He was his performance didn't really stand out, but then again, it's a slasher movie. I mean, you know.
Well, he is very attractive, and certainly does look like his father. There
Hmm.
is a strong resemblance between him and his father. So there is that. Um, in regards to more of what is
Oh,
that him there?
yeah, because he was. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I did not notice. I did not know that was Scott, but I do remember him. He
Hmm.
was the deputy. Basically, the town pretty much wanted to railroad that particular family.
Right.
So they kind of tried to retcon a little bit of stuff from the original, but yeah, he was like a young sheriff. He did a lot of running, deputy. He did a lot of running in this movie. That's what I remember. He looked
Well,
good
he
doing
looks
it
good
too.
there.
He looked good doing it too. It was like, oh, okay, so, that's who you want protecting you and all that. Ah,
It's like,
yeah.
thank you for protecting me.
Hmm.
Are you single?
Yes. Yes, he was absolutely delicious. I enjoyed watching him in this movie. The plot sucked, like I said, the plot absolutely sucked, but it was good seeing him in it. That's for darn. That's for darn sure. So let's see. That's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So he was in the Chicago Fire TV series, which I didn't see.
Yeah, I didn't
Did
watch
you
that
see
either,
that?
but it was a popular series.
It was. It was one of those. Was it on NBC,
It
ABC?
might have been, or
Mm.
yeah, maybe it was. It was a popular show.
Yeah, it really was. I just never like got the chance to really watch it. It was like those kind of shows, they really weren't my thing. CSI was my thing to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not miss an episode of that. But yeah, Chicago Fire was extremely popular.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Very, very, very popular. Hey, Darth Megatron 69. How are you, my dear? Good seeing you. He says, don't know why you ladies be looking at these Eastwood boys. I'm all the eye candy you could ever need.
Oh my
I got the vase
goodness.
now.
Wow. Darth, 69. We should know the 69 on the end of it. We should have known.
Yeah, we should have picked that up right away. So good seeing you here, my dear. Cannot wait to. I'm remodeling my studio eventually, so I've got like your artwork like all matted and framed and everything. So I just need to move things around so I can put that cool artwork up here. Let's see. The longest ride. I think. Why does this sound familiar? Is it like 8 seconds? No, it can't be like 8 seconds. The longest
Ooh, that looks
ride.
like, yeah, you're right. It is like 8 seconds. Bull riding?
Ooh, I think I do. There was this older man who, again, was kind of like a mentor figure, and this young couple, what was going on with them, and he was kind of like a mentor to the problems and the issues that they were going through.
Mm-hmm.
So this was one of those where I meant to see, but did not get a chance to see it.
Interesting. I mean, I know I've seen PBR on TV, the rodeo and the bull
Mhm.
riding, and that is one hard job. Like that was, you really have to have balls and guts to play or to be a person who does that. And
Mhm.
they wear the gear on their bodies and it beats them up and they have injuries a lot. And it is a tough, you have to be as tough as nails to even step into that ring and get on the bull.
Mhm.
I think I'd probably say, yeah, maybe we shouldn't open the door. Let me just stay on the bull and leave it at that. But even when they're inside the chamber where the bull is, and the bull will move around, you know what I mean? Like the bull's like, I just feel like moving around, and you see the guy like being kind of moved around. I'm like, gee, they haven't even gotten out of the starting gate yet. But it also looks like a romance, Lorena.
It is, and it's the kind of romance like you have the older mentor
Yeah.
who he sees this couple and it's like he relives his life in a way
Oh,
through
okay.
them.
Yeah.
So with what they go through, he kind of gives that hindsight advice. Like if I could go back in time and tell myself to do X, Y, and Z, you should probably consider doing, X,
Uh-huh.
Y, and Z.
Well, Lorena, that shot right there is the prize winning shot for me. I don't
Isn't
know
it?
about you.
Isn't it? He's got the hat. He's got, all of this on because another thing is like if you're not used to being around bulls, because I've seen some of them like up in person, and especially when they're the ones for the rodeo and they're really riled up, that is several tons sometimes, almost close to a ton of just raw, uncontrolled, muscle. And my mother used to tell me stories because they lived out in the country in Florida, nothing to do. So one of their favorite things to do would be to go to agitate the bulls in the pen.
Oh dear.
Yes, like literally. So they would go and get like a stick and like, because bulls are attracted by the movement. Not me, but the bullfights. They're not attracted by the red of the cape. They're attracted by the movement of the cape. So my mom and my uncles and a couple of their friends would go to like purposely agitate the bulls until it got out and they had to run for their life. And she said, my brother threw me up on the porch of the house and he ran up, under the house. I'm like, why did you freaking do that? She's like, we didn't have anything to do. We didn't have anything to do. It's like, can you imagine some like 1,000-pound bull charging, charging at you? But it's just something about being able to control that type of power and hang on for as long as you possibly can. That
Yeah. And he looks like a bull rider in these shots that we're seeing Lorena for sure.
Mhm.
That is it's very interesting. I'm gonna have to watch this film.
We probably are going to have to watch this film because again, this was one of those movies where who's directing? Is that George Tillman
George
Jr.?
Tillman Jr.
I think he's the director. Yeah, because like Alan Alda is in this movie, and I think he's the older man who's like reliving his life. But
Hmm.
George Tillman, I've heard of. I'm gonna have to look him up at another time. But yeah, that's another romantic story, which I wish I would have gone and watched. But it looks like it's if you're into like say The Notebook, which I watched, it was okay. It
Oh,
was
you didn't like The
okay.
Notebook? Oh, you mean and did you thought The Notebook was okay, or what were you?
I thought it was okay.
Okay.
It wasn't as like I didn't hate it, I didn't love it. I mean, it was the thing with Nicholas Sparks, he's I don't know. He's not my cup of tea. I'll watch it. But it's, like the best part of me, I think it was that one. I saw that one. I was kind of like, okay, okay. And that was just me. Like
Well,
it wasn't bad.
The Notebook was a very popular film. That was like, it was a big deal. It was very successful, and a lot
Mhm,
of people did like it. And it is a romance. And of course, it's very similar to what you're saying, Lorena. It's an older man who is recounting what had happened in life. Um, and then, of course, we see he and his soon-to-be wife in the story
mhm.
in the movie. And I think it was a very touching story. It's not for everybody.
No. No, it's like it was for me, it was okay. It's like I didn't hate it. Um, the end was like heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to spoil it for anybody, but
Mhm.
the end was just absolutely heartbreaking. But it was one of those where it was like, okay, I've seen it and I'm kind of done. And
Mhm.
I'm kind of
Oh,
done with it.
you know, he was in The Outpost, which is a military film. I didn't know he was in that.
Mm,
And you've
Outposts.
probably seen this advertised. I think it's on Amazon Prime now. And Orlando Bloom is in it. And it's this very oddly placed
Hmm.
outpost where the soldiers are, and it's not strategically safe. I hope I'm saying that right. When you see this outpost, it looks, like they're, excuse me, they're sitting ducks, and
Mhm.
they have to defend it, and it's a very difficult position to be in. But seeing Orlando Bloom as a soldier is like unbelievable.
That
Um,
is, yeah, that's like kind of wild. Are they
yeah,
in
I've never seen him.
Afghanistan?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
there we go.
The most heroic battle of the Afghanistan war. Um, yeah,
Wow.
it's unbelievable looking. And he was in it. I didn't know he was in
I
that.
didn't know it was in that. I wonder if this is like a Lone Survivor,
Um,
the one that Mark Wahlberg was
mhm,
in,
mhm.
kind of like in the
Oh, and we can see him there.
same
We we,
vein.
we can see Eastwood is in this. He's
Hmm.
one of the soldiers there.
Bring us out.
It's I don't know if it is like Lone Survivor, but it's definitely worth a watch.
Okay, you
And
can
I
watch it
like,
on Netflix. Okay,
yeah, even the poster, like, it draws you in. You're like, yeah, I got
I
to find
love
out more
this.
about these soldiers. And I didn't realize that he was in that. So yeah, yeah,
Nice. That's
yeah.
another one for the watch list because
Mhm.
I will watch this.
Yes.
I will watch this. I'll have to see if it's as good as American Sniper. That's still like my favorite.
Yeah,
Uh,
that one is a classic, and it'll be very hard to top American Sniper.
yeah. Let's see. We know about Suicide Squad. Okay, here we go. The Fate of the Furious. Which one is this one? Number I think
8,
it is.
isn't
Yeah,
it?
8. There we go. 8. 8. The Fate of the Furious. I think Was this the first one after Paul Walker died?
I don't know.
It looks like
I
it
wish I knew.
is.
I don't know.
Because I didn't see this one. I don't think Jason Statham was in this
Mhm.
one. Because Michelle Rodriguez is back.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I
Yeah.
think that it was. Yeah, Fast
Mhm.
8. Yeah, not a bad
Ooh,
movie. Yeah,
ooh.
I just kind of said I think with Paul Walker for me, it's like I love seeing Paul Walker.
Yeah, he really was something special, and it's a shame that he's no longer with us.
Hmm.
But I understand what you're saying. It does change the tone of the
Yeah, it
film.
was kind of like, all right, I think I'm gonna put a pause on it and, you know, not go back to the franchise. It's not necessarily that I didn't like it. It was just kind of like it just felt weird for me to see the movie without Paul Walker.
Mhm.
But now that the 10 one is here, well, we'll be here soon once they're done filming. I'll definitely check it out. They did a nice tribute to him. Okay,
Yes.
then I might entertain watching this. I think it's again just for me, it was just like without Paul Walker, it just kind of just felt weird. So okay, nice tribute. Then I'm probably gonna go and check it out. But yeah, apparently he was a little nobody. I guess the on-screen son of Kurt Russell,
Hmm.
who he's another one. I love Kurt Russell. Oh my god.
Yeah, I love him too. He is
Oh my
fantastic.
gosh. The original Overboard, not the reboot. Do not
With
freaking watch
Goldie
that.
Hawn.
Yes, the one with Goldie Hawn. You have to watch the original
Oh
of
my gosh.
Overboard.
That is just such a classic. And he's something else. I mean, initially, I think it's very funny because we see films like this. That film also reminded me of Passengers. Um, uh,
With the
because
premise, because it's like, yeah, we're married. We're married. Yes, we're married. I don't recall being married. But the same premise, right? It's like it starts out with it's not really the truth, but it's an opportunity, and he takes advantage of that particular
Yes,
opportunity.
and then of course she has to make a decision. Do I forgive him for what he's done? Darn him. He's kind of
Mhm.
cute. Um, or do I, walk away from this?
Mhm.
So, of course you
Exactly.
don't walk away. You don't walk away. You just
Nah.
go.
Nah.
You already did most of the ride and you just keep going.
Mhm. That is a seriously fun 80s movie. Go watch
Mhm.
Overboard, the original.
Mhm.
It's just too funny. So let's see. We already did. Let's see. Fast and Furious. And let's see what else. Let's see. Pacific Rim, which I still haven't seen, and people told me I need to see it.
I think, I don't know if that's the one that I
Surprised me.
saw. I mean, I've seen
Let's see.
one Pacific Rim because I think that's the second film in the
Hmm.
series. And I liked Pacific Rim. I thought that the idea that they were trying to put on film was fun.
Hmm.
So what happens is it's like an alien
I
invasion.
need to watch this because this is Mecca, and I freaking love giant ass robots. We just need to make a movie list of stuff we need to catch up on. That's
Yeah,
so
and I
cool.
like that John Boyega's in it.
That was, I want to say, his I don't know if he did Attack of the Block before this one.
I loved Attack of the Block.
I did too, and I hadn't seen it before. And on my channel, I did a show with Cameron Pasha, and we talked about urban horror movies, and
Yes.
this was one of them. So
Yeah.
I watched Attack of the Block before we recorded that show, and it was actually really, really good. It was very good. He looks so, holy crap, he looks so good now.
Yeah, he really does.
He
He
was
really
really
does.
hot. I was really hot there. That movie. Let's see. And we'll skip up to here to, of course, Fast X.
Yay!
Fast X, which I
Mhm.
had no no desire to watch
Mhm.
until I heard
And that's
about.
the video for F9.
Yes, that's a video for F9. It was kind of like not a deal, but
Yeah, her name's on the list. And it's like
yeah.
higher up on the list.
Yeah, Sun Kang, I like him. I really do like him.
Well, yeah, I like him. He was in the Kenobi series, and he plays one of the Inquisitors. And he was an Inquisitor that scared me because the way that he
No
spoke.
kidding.
Yeah, they put this vocal thing on his voice, and it scared me to death. I'm still scared of that character.
I'm gonna have to watch that again purely so I can
And he is 50 years old.
I cannot freaking believe that because man, I'm telling you, he was one of the reasons why I watched some of the Fast and the Furious movies because I was like, man, he's really hot.
Mhm.
He's really absolutely hot. Y'all gonna have to put up with me in here for a minute for this. Scabs and Fast Five, yes, because I remember him from Tokyo Drift.
How can I forget that? How can I forget that? That was like one of my favorite ones.
I did. That was the one that initially hooked me into the Fast
Yes.
and the Furious franchise. The first one, I didn't really care about. Tokyo Drift, I was there with bells on for that one.
That was such a great film. I loved it. I thought it was a great concept.
Awesome. He's the fifth brother. Okay, so I'm gonna have to roll back and watch Kenobi, that part of Kenobi, so I can see what that one.
His voice, he plays this Inquisitor, and he uses like a voice box to talk, and it's terrifyingly like scary for me. And I was like, oh my God, stay away from that Inquisitor. Like he's dangerous. That's how I felt. And yeah, I didn't know it was him. I had to look it up. I had to look it up. So it's interesting. He's bringing back the same character, right, Lorena? He's playing Han from before. Oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah. So he's coming back. I love Charlize Theron's character in Fast.
So much.
Freaking love her. Love her. Of course. Yeah, Alan's in it. Jason is in it. Michelle Rodriguez, I could pretty much take her or leave. Vin Diesel, he gets a pass because
Jordana Brewster's going to be in this one. Yeah, Vin Diesel.
I like her.
I love her too. Vin Diesel is also, is he over 50? He is.
Yes, he's 55.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a mature cast, Lorena.
It is because how it's been around for so long. Eventually, it was going to, it was going to evolve. So I'm excited to see how this changes. Because let's see, Tyrese is here. That Ludacris is in it. A lot of God, yeah, I think Ludacris is pushing 50 too.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of these who look really good. Who look really good for their age. So
Rita Moreno is in this, and she's 90, right?
Yes, Rita Moreno is OG. OG. Like I remember seeing her pop up in Sesame Street reruns. Yeah.
Hey, you guys. That's what she used to do, right?
I think so. She was just one of those where the talent, especially on the Muppet Show.
Yes.
You would see her. So she was just one of those, amazing talent. So this is going to be cool. And I think, when is this supposed to come out? May 19th, 2023.
Really?
Because they switched directors. Used to be Justin Lin was supposed to be directing, but no more. You want to work with Vin Diesel. So now he's going to be directing the live action version of One Punch Man.
Oh,
the
wow.
anime. So he's going to be doing that. So Louis Leterrier took over as director for this. Yeah, he did the Transporter movie. So this is going to be interesting. So it's going to be cool seeing Scott Eastwood in this. It's gonna very exciting. I love talking about these father-son pairs in Hollywood. It's just an interesting dynamic to look at, looking at, the father's filmography, the son's filmography, and kind of what crosses what crosses over. So hopefully you folks have enjoyed this. I know it's been a great, absolute fun time talking about these two and talking about, again, kind of emphasizing the value of fathers.
Yes.
So that's something that's not really talked about as much, and it really does need to be. So those of you out there who are fathers, happy
Yes.
early Father's Day, and especially a happy Father's Day to those of you who may not have had the father in your life, but you made a decision to do the job that he could not or did not do. So props to you guys, and definitely props to the single fathers that are out there as well. You have an extremely, extremely important job, and please do not take it lightly.
Yes, absolutely. We appreciate you and we notice. And although popular opinion may not reflect that, we're here to tell you that you are appreciated. We know that you're doing these things behind the
Hmm.
scenes often and are not getting recognition for that, but we appreciate it.
Especially those of you who are single fathers to girls.
Mhm.
Bruh, props. Absolute props, because that is a tough job, and you're
Absolutely.
doing you're doing good. You're doing great work. All right. Any last thoughts about Clint and Scott Eastwood before we wrap up, my dear?
I think that it would be amazing to see the two of them in a film together. Um,
Oh yeah.
and Clint Eastwood's last film, which I think was Cry Macho, he was good in that as well.
Hmm.
But I would like to see, I know it might not be possible to do that, but to see the two of them in a film together, or at least one or two films, as Scott is continuing his career, would be fantastic. Gee, wouldn't it be funny? I mean, I know Clint Eastwood is not going to show up to F10 or FX, but wouldn't it
Hmm.
be funny if he had a cameo?
You know what? It's far enough off. They may have planned something. If they drop something in there from Gran Torino, do you know people would freak out? It would fit perfectly.
It would.
Oh.
I mean, you start to think about things like this, and then you're like, yeah, that does kind of make sense. Let's bring that back.
Hmm.
Gran Torino has become a classic, a cult classic. And it's just, I think that Scott is probably gonna get
Hmm.
more roles like that, like the 15 seconds or the longest ride, so to speak.
Hmm.
And we're gonna see him in things like that, and it's gonna be amazing. His career is just absolutely so bright for him. And of course, I think that
Absolutely.
reflects in the film that he's going to be in with FX for sure. So, the sky's the limit for him.
Yes. Yes. It's gonna I can't wait. Great, great stuff. Great folks we're talking about, great guys we're talking about. And
Hmm.
this has been a great, great time. So before we roll out, do you want to let the people know where they can find you and what you have coming up?
Absolutely. Guys, you can always find me on my channel on YouTube, Positive Fandom, as well as on Twitch. On Friday afternoons at 12 p.m. Eastern, you can find me on Midnight's Edge in the Morning with Tom and Andre. On Fridays and Saturday nights, you can find me streaming with Robert Meyer Burnett on Midnight Musings on the Post Geek Singularity Network. On Sunday mornings at 10:30 a.m. Eastern live, you can find me on my Sunday brunch show, The Positive Fandom, where we do the parlay of all what's going on in the fandom. You can also find me on Monday nights on Midnight's Edge, streaming with Lorena and Nina Infinity on our show Toxic Femininity at 8 p.m. Eastern. Sometimes on Wednesdays and Thursdays, you can find me streaming on the 1/6 Scale Man Network, either on
Mm.
Say What or Uncivilized Scoundrels. And of course, on Thursdays, you can find me streaming with Lorena here on Twitch on our Toxic Male Appreciation Show.
Oh, yes, and I so love doing this. Love doing this
It's so
show.
good.
It really is. It's so much fun, and so many of you folks are out there enjoying it, and we appreciate all the lovely,
Yes.
wonderful comments that you guys are spreading our way. Of course, has counted down several of the shows that we do. She's a very busy woman, so please do subscribe to her too on Twitch and of
Yes.
course over on YouTube. As for me, usually on let's see what today is Thursday. Okay, not this Thursday, but usually every Thursday you can find me on Justin Proper's channel for This Week in BS, where we just have a fun time talking about just all the absolutely crazy stories that are out there. Saturdays, it seems like lately you're getting a double dose of me. So Saturday morning, I will be at Universal Studios
Yes.
Orlando. We're doing an 80s kind of throwback thing. We're
Yes.
going to be riding ET, so you guys can see the ET ride, and we're also going to be checking out the 80s movie tribute store that
Mhm.
Universal has set up. It's literally like an ET room, like you're in Elliot's room. There's another room that's themed to Jaws. There's another room that's themed to Back to the Future. It's like an 80s movie theater. It's going to be so much fun. So I'm going to have fun just taking you guys through that. Saturday, of course, it's going to be a Saturday show, 7 p.m. Eastern. First run movies I haven't seen, but has seen. And the Saturday is going to be Avatar, aka Dances with
Yes.
Smurfs. I have not seen that movie, so I'm finally gonna flip and see it, and
Mhm.
it's gonna be fun. It's gonna
I
be
can't wait.
absolutely so much fun. I can't wait either. It's gonna be amazing. And of course, Sundays 8 p.m. is the Welcome to Florida show, where we have fun just laughing and learning about the second crazy state in the union, and of course, more Florida man stories and Florida woman stories that have to be seen to
To be.
believe. We're not making this stuff up,
No.
and the stories just get crazier and crazier and crazier, and even more fun when we have video to go along with it. So you do not want to miss that. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us for this edition, this 10th show, which we're so excited about. 10th show of the Toxic Male Appreciation Show. We so do appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much. Take care of yourselves, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.